chasms that separate it from both sides. People without ability power will not be able to cross it, impeding business and lifestyles. Michael looked at a perspective from one of his mini drones high up in the air. There, he saw a top-down vision of New Sparta as well as its surrounding territories. On the northern and southern sides of New Sparta, there were two large gashes on the ground as deep as a mountain and as wide as a canyon. This was made during the aftermath of Eldia and the Ersatz Diamond Leader's attacks. And because of that, one would have to circumvent the edges of the chasm if they wanted to go to New Sparta and vice versa. A simple 4-hour journey would now turn into a 24-hour journey. The repercussions this had over business was immense, even with the use of automobiles and such. Of course, people could try and build a bridge, but it would be hard and would take a lot of effort since the chasm was so deep and wide. The people of this world simply didn't have the necessary infrastructure to create a bridge like that. But he could. Reborn definitely had the methods to create such an infrastructure. In fact, he could even go as far as to create a tunnel and a highway to make travel that much easier. It would definitely be on his to-do list. But right now, he wanted to focus on the Dragonborn's evolution. As a token of my thanks, please take these, Michael said as he handed out phones to Gordon and Wadeby. You can contact me through this, thank you. Then, without waiting for their responses, he descended down into his shadows and disappeared from their sights. Foo, I'll show you how to use them, said Eldia. Trust me, you'll never let this phone go. Michael arrived in the nation of Reborn, seeing that things hadn't changed that much since the loss of magic. The towering skyscrapers still displayed large TV screens showing Rebornian advertisements. Lights from houses colored the concrete jungle a warm orange hue, and thousands of people, all from different species and walks of life, strode through the broadways and thoroughfares with an unhurried step. Thanks to his great staff, the chaos caused by the disappearance of magic was diminished to a minimum. Announcements of his voice played on every house, assuring them that nothing was wrong and that they'd be safe here. They'd never doubted Michael and they wouldn't ever do so. It also helped that the Rebornians weren't that dependent on magic in the first place. Everything they wanted to do could be done through the mechanical systems placed around the nation. They had water, food, transportation, entertainment, everything. They were comfortable with their life even with magic's disappearance. Whoa, what is this place? Infernus asked, his slitted eyes widening in shock. Beautiful, absolutely beautiful, I never want to leave this place. The Draconian's remark made Michael shake his head. He didn't know if that was a good thing or a bad thing. Anyway, he left Infernus over to the Rebornians to give him a tour. Meanwhile, he teleported himself to their headquarters, ready to see this new evolution path ChatJK6 had in mind. Michael called the 3 Dragonborns to stand in front of him. Jaku, as usual, was yawning as he stood on one leg. Yumisu was fidgeting with her hands as she looked down, and Shayna was the only one who looked at him straight up. Perhaps a little bit too intensely, he thought. Anyway, he looked at the 3 Dragonborns and turned to ChatJK6. Would you like to start the evolutionary process with the Dragonborns? What does this evolution entail? This evolution will simply be the next step to their DNA. What results is a much more evolved and perfected version of their current selves. ChatJK6's answer was vague. Perhaps it was because she didn't know what would happen as well. After all, evolution was an inexact science. Even if twins did have the same DNA, their bodies would grow up completely differently, and evolution more so. Do you guys want to evolve? He asked them. Evolve, Lord Michael. He nodded. Yes, evolve. Just like how you turned from being Komodos to becoming the Dragonborns, you now have the chance to become something more. Jaku scratched his head. I wouldn't have to do anything, right? I can just sleep as I do it. I feel embarrassed if I evolve right in front of you, Boss Michael, murmured Yumisu. Michael laughed at their worries. I thought you guys would feel a little bit hesitant with evolution. Shayna shook her head. Of course not, Lord Michael, an evolution is exactly what we need right now. After everything we saw these past few days, we realize that we are still lacking in a lot of power to protect everything precious to us. So if an evolution is how we're going to keep the reborn company protected, then that is what we're going to do. Yeah, what she said Jaku. We want to catch up to you, said Yumisu. How can we protect you if we can't even protect ourselves? That was all that he needed to hear, and in his mind he gave the go-ahead to chat JK6. Immediately, a bright golden light emerged out of the Dragonborn's chests, taking everyone by surprise. Well, it feels funny. The golden light in their chests continued to grow brighter and brighter until it encompassed the entire room itself. Even as a nascent spirit cultivator, Michael had to close his eyes in fear of going blind. After a few seconds, the light subsided and he could finally open his eyes. And what laid in front of him was 3 large eggs. Michael blinked, not knowing how to react. The Dragonborns had turned into eggs. Was this the next evolutionary phase for them, becoming eggs? Does this mean that once they've hatched, they'll become true dragons? Michael didn't know. He couldn't even peek through the shell of their eggs using his supreme talent. All he saw prismatic light simmering in a soup-like liquid inside. It's good that I didn't get too excited and started their evolutionary process as soon as I got it. Thankfully, Michael had the foresight to only start the evolution once they'd returned to their nation. It was actually close. In his excitement, he almost said yes to chat JK6 as soon as she posed the question of evolution. Thankfully, he knew that chat JK6 had the tendency of making someone turn unconscious whenever something monumental happened. He didn't want other people seeing the Dragonborns suddenly pass out once the evolutionary process started. And even in their headquarters, he wasn't that confident yet. He had his Unity clones and even more Shadow Orcs to monitor the outside world and make sure that nothing would happen while the Dragonborns underwent their evolution. Now that precaution turned out to be true. The Dragonborns had turned into large eggs as big as a baby elephant. He didn't know what would happen once their shells were cracked before they were ready, but he wasn't willing to find out. He didn't even want to knock on the shell to test its durability. ChatJK6, how long does their evolution take place? Unknown, it could go from a few hours to a few weeks. Michael pursed his lips and just had to be patient. If he knew that their evolution could have taken this long, he would have postponed it for some other time. After all, there were tons of things he had to do, and without Shayna and the other Dragonborns, he'd have trouble dealing with them all alone. Right now, Cassell was busy herself. She was currently making sure that the McTony's restaurant was developing and working properly as intended. The abrupt ending of the feast left a lot of people wanting and craving for more ice cream and fried chicken. Thankfully, Cassell was quick and had their employees start directing these hungry people towards the other branches of McTony's. Alpha Bravo, continue guarding the Dragonborns, he commanded his clones. In the meanwhile, he teleported outside and looked down at the nation with a contemplative look on his face. There were a lot of things to consider, lots of things to change. His main goal right now was to find a way to change ersatz from the inside out, start undoing their brainwash. Everything else was secondary, including the expansion to the upper echelon elites. I'll need to start creating more technologies. One of his biggest plans right now was air travel. Airplanes. That's the reason why he didn't mind not having any wyverns for the prize. He could simply build his own air force. But that needed a lot of preparations. Right now, he wanted to focus on the nation itself. I should talk to Kong and the other engineers about my plans. And just as he was about to teleport, he suddenly saw something out of the corner of his eyes. A twinkle of golden light. It caught his attention because he saw that same light before, quite recently actually. And it was then that he remembered something, someone. He immediately rushed to the training grounds of the nation, seeing a red-scaled dragonborn emitting a golden light. Michael landed onto the soil, creating a dust cloud around him. Ho ho ho, it seems that I may have been too harsh in my training, said Grieve. Zion was on his knees, clutching his heart while the rest of the Rebornian trainees looked around him with worry. Lord Michael, said Grieve. Michael turned to the skeleton general. All this time, Grieve had been in the nation of Reborn, keeping their growing armies trained and managed. He was the one who ensured that there were guards and protectors all throughout the lands occupied by Reborn. And currently,